Yes, team, what is happening? Welcome back to the channel. So I'm sat here today with my legend client Mark, and it's just before Christmas, as you can probably tell. And I just wanted to chat through 2024, where he's been, what he's achieved, why he chose us. Just get a little bit of an understanding of where he's sort of been. So, Mark, welcome to the channel. Can you just give me a
Thank
little
you.
bit of a rundown of who you are and what you're doing here, basically?
Yeah, so I'm Mark, as Lou's just mentioned, and I've been part of the tribe and working with Lou now for just over 12 months. Um, I started the back end of 2023, which really allowed me to set up for 2024 and push into that year. And I was sitting the heaviest and probably the most unhappiest I've ever been in my life at the back end of 2023. And that wasn't because everything in my life was going good. Family were good, work was good. The only thing I wasn't happy about was sort of me, the way I felt, the way I looked. You know, as I'm getting older as well, being able to keep up with work and Maddie and all of that together, I was finding that really, really difficult. So I thought I need to do something that I can change, how I do that. And that's when I found Lewis.
Exactly that. So like again, we preach about it all the time, but is that one of the biggest struggles that you had? Was like how you meant to balance all of these three things, or do you think like fitness dropped off because you were so focused on the other two things?
I think, but by the nature of my personality is I'm kind of an all or nothing person. Um, so I push everything into one thing, and I think it's either been work, and I've pushed everything in, and everything else has sort of took like a back seat. Or I'll when I have done diets in the past, I've pushed everything into that and tried to do it too quick and all of that type of stuff, and then family pushed everything into family, and I've never really been able to strike the right balance. But obviously, working with you guys, I was able to sort of not just the fitness side of things and how structured it is. I was able to find the right pace for me that fits in with what I need to do outside of, training and the gym, still keeping a focus on work and still keeping a focus on the family as well.
Exactly that. And again, obviously the theme of what we do is exactly that. And I think I'm gonna recoin it into like the trifecta, isn't it? With like family, fitness, and work. And as I said before, usually some people think that, in order to get successful with fitness, then something has to drop off. Whereas I've never seen anyone who have coach where works went worse because they've worked on themselves, or work time with the families went worse because they worked on themselves. It's like a flywheel that actually works together. So just give people a little bit of a context of like between like 2024, what have you achieved since you started, from your physique right the way through to everything else? Because it's been quite a journey so far. Like,
So in overall, I've dropped round about 30 kilograms, so that's what just over 5 stone, which is the most weight I have ever lost. Like I've always lost like a stone or half a stone here and there, but doing that in that one block is the most I've lost. Um, and I was able to sort of feel much better in myself. I've got so much more confidence now in speaking to people, which helps in a job that I do where I'm constantly speaking to people every single day. So the anxieties that I had going into work meetings or work calls have now sort of drifted away because I feel much more confident in myself in how I look and how I feel. Um, and also, the big things for me, in the gym like consistently now, which is great. But one of the big highlights was running a half marathon. And I think you'll probably remember from our first call together, Lou, where I said to you, yeah, I don't run and I'm not going to
I'm gonna
run.
ruin
And
it.
you were like, well, maybe let's see how that goes. And yeah, I mean, I still do a class myself. I probably would class myself as a runner now because I've ran a half marathon and I've got aspirations to do more halves. I've signed up for the Liverpool half marathon with the rest of the team
Yeah,
in March, and I will at some point do a full marathon. It's a case of just stepping that up and again finding the right balance for the training because it's
takes up.
ultimately it's the training that takes up the time.
Yeah,
So
agree. No, you're right. Like that's exactly like huge 5 stone. When you think about it like that, I always think in kg, and because we see it all the time, like 20 kg or 30 kg, like 5 stones are a lot of weight.
Well,
Um,
Maddie is a stone. She weighs a stone.
she's like
So
5 of it. That's
I always look at it now that I've been carrying, like, for the since she was born, I've carried 5 of her around with me every single day, and that's going to take its toll on anybody. And now I'm sort of, not that Maddie's a burden, I'm free of that burden of weight, if that makes any sense.
and you've got stronger at the same time, so actually
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
lot easier.
So I
But
probably could do it. Fine.
yeah, you're flying. Like I said, that's sort of happens a natural step, and I say it all the time. But like action breeds confidence. So as I said there, like people assume that if they focus on fitness too much, which people do, I said we'll come on to that in a second. It affects other parts of the life where actual fact you become more confident in yourself, which affects work, and then your family life gets better because you're not going into work stressed. You're not coming out of work stressed. You're not carrying it like that subconscious like feeling of lacking confidence and frustration that sort of happens because I was going to ask you a question. I was going to write it down. How many times do you think, because I think this is a big thing across the board, how many times do you think you've lost weight? Do you know what I mean? Like if you've lost 5 kilos, how many times have you done that?
Before tribe or
Yeah, yeah. Before starting with those, how many times have you lost maybe like 5 kilo or a stone?
lots, like throughout when I really started getting a bit serious about fitness when I was like 13, 14, lots. I've probably, if you were to jot it down and go back, yeah, if you're talking stone, there's probably like 30 or 40 stone worth of weight loss. It's just not consistent, and it's not. I've just put it straight back on again, or whatever.
The reason I say that is because I think, again, this is a perfect fit for the time of year. People go into each year losing that weight, but then putting it back on. And they keep losing the same 5 or 10 kilo every single year with no real forward momentum. Whereas that's something that I'm a massive advocate of based on what we do with our phased out roadmap and mapping it all out, is because the goal is to get to a position where you don't have to diet ever again. And you're at a position now where you can maintain your weight and you've maintained your weight in a long time frame consciously, which is really, really successful in my eyes. And then you can also go, well, if I turn a dial up, I can pull it down even more. Or if I turn a dial up, I can push it up even more. You're in control of that a lot more now, which I think a lot of people aren't. Do you feel like they have to go, they're constantly focused on losing that 5, 10 kilos or that stone or 2 stone, but realistically, they're never knowing what's going to come out the other side of it. And that's why it's so important to have that clarity and that roadmap and that support with things, which is absolutely huge. What do you think? What do you think made it different than every time before then? What do you think it was?
I I think the no, um like, I don't want to swear, but the no BS approach
That's
really helped,
Yeah.
and being able to speak to someone like yourself who's done it, but also isn't your archetypical gym bro, or because they're not. There's a lot of, and I don't want to knock anybody else because there's a lot of good people out there, but
Of
there's a
course.
lot of people who are just wanting to, tick boxes, sending you copied and paste messages or copied and paste programs. No one really wants to take the time to sit down and go, okay, well, what's the real problems? As we did in that first consultation call, you were asking the questions that nobody else has ever asked me before, and it wasn't so much about, you know, how much can you lift in the gym, how far can you run on a treadmill. It was more about, well, what do you want to achieve out of what do you want to achieve out of this? What's the goal look like for you? Is it weight loss? And if it's weight loss, how much weight loss? And it was kind of like, it was just a completely different approach that I felt, and it felt so refreshing to me, and that's been the sort of foundation that's allowed me to sort of carry on and continue, because it's so much more about a mentality shift change.
Mm.
And for me, one of the big things was understanding more about the relationship that I have with food, and the fact that I didn't have a good relationship with food. Like, I absolutely love food, and I was abusing it to a point because I love it.
Mm.
It was a comfort thing, and I'd always good memories around eating food, whether that was, Sunday dinners with the family or eating crisp and chocolate, watching a film. All of good memories seem to center around food. But when I actually sit back and, the way you work, you're constantly asking us to reflect on where we've come. I think the phrase you use is zoom out all the time to see how far you've come. And as part of that reflection process, I started to realize and understand I've been abusing food, and I'm not using it in the way in which it should be, as something to be enjoyed, and something that you can get enjoyment from it, but in moderation and using it in the right way. And that's one of the big things for me. Having those early foundations has allowed me to sort of achieve and look back and reflect and then learn from where those mistakes I've made in the past have been.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm probably the only, well, not the only coach, but the coach who sat here with the blue sweater on with a fire in the background. And that's the difference between like I haven't got me stringer vest on. Like I
Yeah.
relate to me clientele, and I would say I'm more like a mature coach because I understand what it's like to have a baby or a young family or to balance a career and fitness. Like I'm not someone who just goes to gym 7 times a week, but then that's all they do. It's just centered around that. And I think that's important because the message that I promote is like being the, again, I use the two terms, be the inspiration and be someone you can model. And that's where I stand everything on. So I want someone to look at me, and this is not for like external gratification or anything like that. Look at me and go, I want to model that person. So be the best shape, be strong, be fast, be fit, be the best dad, be the best business owner, be the best coach, the best person, whatever it is. Like that's what I'm striving to be personally, and that's what I obviously use with the team as well. So no, it makes sense to me. You've absolutely crushed it since you started, and I think you found, and that's what I mean about that is like I tend to meet people where they're at. A lot of the fitness side of things, like you said, copy and paste programs, is that this works, go and do that, but that doesn't help anyone. We all know that you need to eat less and move more in order to lose weight, but it doesn't help anyone. What helps someone is meeting them where they're at and strategizing with them, whether that means not training at the start, whether that means getting food under control, because there's a lot more deeper rooted stuff than just eat less food and train a little bit harder. So that's where it comes down. And again, these all sound like because they are absolutely massive targets that you've nailed, like 30 kilos lost, half marathon, relationship with the food sort of fixed, being able to maintain your weight, all that seem like massive goals. But I want to get across the point that, of course, it's took a little bit of sacrifice. Of course, it's took hard work. Of course, it has. But it's achievable for everyone. I want you to try and get across. Like, it's not as hard, not as hard. It is not as scary as people might think, is it?
No, it's not. And for me, I think that again, that's the main reason why I've been able to stick at it.
Mm.
Because in the past I've tried, doing programs or whatever, and you go, right, I've got to be at the gym 4 times a week, whatever it is, and then I've got to do this, and then I've got to eat that, and then I need to be here, and it's just not sustainable. Whereas the sort of the process that we have with Tribe allows you to the time and the space to figure out what's right for you and what works around your life. I mean, obviously I travel a fair bit with work.
Mhm.
Um and the thing for me, the big anxious thing for me at the beginning was, okay, well, how am I going to continue what I've done? Because I made a lot of progress. And then, the work travel kicks in, because some weeks I might not travel, and then other weeks or months I'll be traveling constantly, almost every day. And for me, it was kind of like, well, how can I keep up that momentum that I've built? And I don't want to lose anything from that. But having the access to you and be able to say, Lou, this is what I've got. The hotel I'm in, unfortunately, doesn't have a gym. What can we do? And then there's always stuff there for you to be able to do and say, well, we can still get this in, or we can move this session to the weekend, for example. And it's the flexibility that it affords, allows you to stick at it and keep going.
That's it. Because I bang the drum every single time of like, you never like. It's quite crude the way I say this, but like life only gets busier until you retire, and then the likelihood of dying early is a lot higher because you lose purpose. It's not a good
Yeah,
trade-off. So like if people are constantly waiting for things to slow down, it's something that's never going to happen. So you've got
no,
to learn to understand, like, look back and go, over the last 6 weeks, have you had a clear 6 weeks? Absolutely not. In the last 6 weeks, I've been sick, I've been out, the baby's been sick, work's been busy, whatever's been going on, there's loads of stuff. That's just in that 6 weeks alone. So if you're looking for like the perfect 12 weeks or the perfect 6 months to go, right, now I'm going to commit, you're never going to find it. Whereas it's about how you sort of overcome these challenges and these hurdles by having that support system to allow you to get to that point. Because at the end of the day now, whether you travel, whether you go on holiday, whether you're sick, whether you haven't got access to a gym, you know what to do in every single situation, which only
yeah,
happens by going through that. If you had a clear 6 months, 6 weeks, you wouldn't learn nothing. And that's the
no,
important thing as well. So yeah, we're trying to get across there. It's like it sounds scary and it can be quite scary to be like, well, all these things have to change, but realistically, it's subtle changes that make the biggest difference. And I think going from where you was to where you are now is completely different. But how you got there was just incremental steps every single week, every single month. And that's where I'm never going to say things are easy or seamless because it requires effort and it requires work. But I think people need to drop the barrier for what they think they need to do to get where they need to get to and start there. And I think that's why
yeah,
we do it with like 30 days and like breaking it down because it can be quite overwhelming when you break it down. And again, coming from me, who's helped hundreds of people do this, and yourself, who's done it yourself, it's easy for us to sit here and go, it's not that difficult, or it's not, it doesn't take that much effort. Um, but what I'm trying to say is, it's not as a big of a mountain as people assume it is. Or what's the saying?
no,
You can only eat elephants one bite at a time.
yeah.
Same thing
And
again.
that's it. It's like one of the things that struck home for me is you don't do a long distance drive, as you say. It doesn't take you an hour. It takes you 6 or 7 hours or however it was. And sometimes you might need to stop overnight because you're tired.
Yeah,
And it's exactly the same as this. You can't just put everything in. I guess you've got to have the destination where you want to be in mind. You've got to know where you want to get to. So for me, I wanted to get to, I think it was 95 or at least
the
under 100,
90s.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it said. And then, we got to that and then we shifted that down to 80 and somewhere between 80 and 85. Um, and I'm kind of like, I think I can live my life comfortably between that 80 and 85 bracket without having to worry about dieting too much, being able to eat a little bit more of what I want, keep up with the activity that I'm now doing that I now find easier to do because activity now I'm not, 18 odd stone is much easier to do. It's much easier to go for a walk with Maddie. It's much easier to, play football now and so I'm finding activity comes much easier now and that allows me to eat a little bit more of what I want.
That's
So yeah, it's all. I think it's breaking things down into manageable chunks so they can be achieved, and you can achieve things straight away quite quickly, but then maintaining that what you've achieved is the difficult part, and that's where I always fell in the past. Whereas I'm so pleased, and I'm quite proud of myself really that I've been able to stick at it. But I think that's been through, the support of yourself and the other coaches, but also the rest of the tribe. The community that you guys have built there is massive. It's massive for me because I'm finding, like-minded people. There's people in there who are doctors, running successful businesses, much busier people than what I am. And they're not using the excuse of I don't have enough time. They're all family people. They've all got kids, and they're still out there doing it and achieving it, but still supporting the newer guys in the team, which they did when I joined. So yeah, I think you guys need to take a large amount of credit because it's the community that you have built and the practices that you put in place that allows people like me to sustain, a better life and a better way of doing things.
No, I appreciate that. Again, did not pay him to say that, promise you.
No, no, he
Um,
never.
but I was going to say
I
that.
wouldn't endorse anything for money or whatever, unless it's something that I like.
Yeah,
For me, I think it works because I'm proof it works, and I like what you've done, and I like how you work, and the rest of the coaches as well. It needs a shout out. It deserves a shout out.
no, I appreciate it. Again, I said we built this framework that just works for the type of people that we help, like yourself, like myself. It's an extension of me. So like, I was going to ask that question, but I think you just answered it. Like I said earlier in the chat, like how many times have you lost weight before? What sort of makes us different, or what is the one thing from the coaching whole thing that you think has been the most beneficial thing?
First and foremost, it's the fact that you're there and available.
Mm.
Um, Obviously not 24 hours a day because we've all got boundaries and that's very important. But you're there when needed. And even if you don't have the answer, one of the other coaches might.
Yeah,
And it's that team that you have behind you, that allows the support. But also, as I mentioned before, the answers come from the community as well, because there's a lot of people who are a bit further on their journey than what I am. They're able to answer a lot of questions straight away. So whether it's a workout related question, you can ask the community. If you guys are unavailable or busy or whatever. But that's it. So the availability of you guys is massive, and I don't think you you probably won't get that with you know, a personal trainer, a generic
gym
someone
bro.
who meets you in the gym for 45 minutes. You're not gonna get that availability because, they make their money on the amount of people that they see in the gym, and that's fair enough. You guys have got the time in place to keep checking in with us and stuff. So yeah, that's probably the big major difference is the availability of yourselves and the rest of the community.
I appreciate that. Again, just to finish on that, is that the hardest thing to do when we've just said at the start, when you're trying to balance your life with your work, your family, your fitness, that trifecta, the last thing you want to do is try and match your diary. And that's exactly what you don't have to do. This is what suits you. This is what suits us. This is what we do to meet you where you're at and get you where you need to get to. Whereas as soon as you do the barrier of like, the only time I can meet you is 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, or what happens if the baby's sick, or what happens if you're traveling for work, or what happens if you've got this on. If that's the only thing that you've got, it's not strong enough. Whereas our diaries don't have to match. We've got clients all over the place, and I've got clients in Australia. Like if I send them one thing, they send me the next thing like 12 hours later. That's how it is because we don't have to match our diaries, so it works absolutely wonders. But mate, honestly, I want to say like you absolutely killed it. I speak highly of you every single day. Thank you for coming on and chatting as well. And if you've got any questions or anyone wants a little bit of information on how you get involved with this, then I'll leave something in the description so you can go and check it out. But again, not here to pitch or sell you anything. You can decide yourself. But this is what we do. This is the framework that we've got, and Mark's a living proof of that. So thanks very much, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks for chatting. It's always fun chatting to you, mate.
Let's go.